A very good evening and welcome. This is Newsfirst Primetime News coming to you live and direct from our Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. Today is the 18th of December 2023. For the Newsfirst team, I am Jamal Ratnayaka.
And I'm Rochelle Tumodira. These are your headlines for tonight.
Newsfirst Headlines. Main sponsor.
Harupena discounts of up to 30% off on frames and sunglasses from Vikramarchi Opticians.
Malwatu and Asgiri Mahanayaka Theros tell President to redeploy the military for security and development of Mahindra sacred grounds. Thai-Myanmar cyber terror mafia enslaves Sri Lankan job seekers. Reports claim they are being used for cyber crimes. Former Health Secretary Chandra Gupta arrested. Protest opposite the SLPP office against a statement by Sagara Karyavasam. When others debated, India delivered. Jaishankar on helping Sri Lanka. Frontline socialists claim India's plan is not to help Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, China ink tripartite agreement on water technology.
Newsfirst Headlines. Main sponsor.
Harupena discounts of up to 30% off on frames and sunglasses from Vikramarchi Opticians.
In tonight's top story, in a joint letter to the President, the Asgiri and Malwatu Mahanayaka Theros have expressed concerns about the security of the Mahindra sacred grounds and urged to redeploy security forces to ensure its safety and development.
A joint letter by the Asgiri and Malwatu Mahanayaka Theros emphasized the immense religious and cultural significance of the Mahindra sacred grounds, recognizing it as the cradle of the Mahavihara Theravada tradition and the birthplace of Sri Lankan Buddhist culture. The Mahanayaka Theros stressed to the government its responsibility to safeguard this valuable historical heritage, as it is duty-bound to protect and nurture the Buddha Sasana. The letter urges the President and the relevant departments to work towards restoring the site's past glory and preserving it for future generations. They specifically requested the continued involvement of the Sri Lanka Army in the ongoing development activities within the Mahindra sacred grounds. The Mahanayaka Theros also stressed on the consistent presence and intervention of the Civil Defence Department and the Sri Lanka Police to ensure the safety of pilgrims who visit the monastery complexes, inscriptions and other archaeological remains scattered across the sacred grounds.
56 Sri Lankan citizens, primarily young men and women, are currently detained in an area controlled by a designated terrorist group near the Myanmar-Thailand border. Through exclusive communication with some of the individuals being held, Newsfirst has obtained critical information pertaining to their situation. This is a Newsfirst special report.
Concerns have been mounting over the fate of 50 Sri Lankans who travelled overseas for employment in the IT industry. Now, these Sri Lankans who were lured out of Sri Lanka promising employment in the IT industry in Thailand are currently being held in this area known as the cyber criminal area. Now, this is a border region in Myanmar. Now, as you all know, Myanmar is under a military government and there are several terrorist factions also involved in Myanmar. And this area, of course, is under the control of several terrorist factions, and as a result of that, the fate of these Sri Lankans is in a dangerous situation right now. So 50 Sri Lankans are currently being held here at the cyber criminal area, a Myanmar border region, in the border area along with Thailand. Now, Newsfirst has received information regarding these footage that we have received.
Around 50 of us from Sri Lanka are detained here. This is like a slave camp. They lied to us and moved us here. With the worsening situation in Sri Lanka, we feel prey to this scheme. We were brought here for data entry jobs. However, we are forced to romanticize in a fake manner with other people and scam them. If we say that we cannot do this, they will handcuff us and force us to work. They would then place us in cages, in water bodies, and also tie us from our hands in dark rooms. When the contract period was over, They sold me again for $18,000 to another place. This has been happening for almost a year. Everyone here undergoes the same treatment. There are Chinese nationals here. When we contact the embassy, they do not respond to us. There is a war going on here as well.
The
manner in which we were moved to this place was dangerous. We were taken in 4 vehicles with a military-like unit. Then they took us by board. As we crossed the borders, payments were made. Our phones did not have signal as well. When we reached this place, we were moved to a camp. When we asked if we could go back, they said no. They said if we paid $8,000, we could leave. These people are dangerous and they sometimes electrocute us. There are 4 officers with Sri Lankans here. It's been 2 months since I arrived. We are not given food. We are held by force and are forced to work for 15 to 17 hours a day. We cannot bear this anymore. We're not allowed to speak against them. We are punished. There are around 10 to 15 Sri Lankan girls here with us. Everyone wants to go home.
Newsfirst has obtained exclusive evidence about the Sri Lankan citizens' ordeal, including disturbing accounts of physical and psychological abuse. The Sri Lankan ambassador to Myanmar, Janaka Bandara, speaking to Newsfirst on the matter, said that the Sri Lankan mission is aware of the situation.
There are 56 people held in the area known as Miyawali between Myanmar and Thailand. We are told that they are being held illegally at some sort of a detention facility.
Desperate pleas for help are echoing from families in Sri Lanka whose loved ones stand trapped in a cybercrime ring operating near the Thai-Myanmar border.
IT රැකියාවක් කියලා තායිලන්තයට තමයි ගියේ. දැන් කතා කරනවා විටින් විට ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ අතේ තිබුණු ජංගම.
He went to Thailand for an IT related job. He speaks to us from time to time and their mobile devices have been taken away. When he had the mobile phone in his possession, he revealed that they were detained in a slave camp. I want my son back and that is all I ask from the authorities. We do not understand what is happening there. We may have fallen prey to this scheme due to our lack of understanding. My son completed his A-levels and he is only 22 years old.
අපිට තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ අපි නොදැනුවත්කම නිසා වෙන්නේ නැති අපි මේවට අහුනේ ආර්ථික ප්‍රශ්නයි නිසා ළමයා A-level කරලා අවුරුදු 22යි වෙන්නේ.
The Sri Lankan ambassador to Myanmar, Janaka Bandara, has confirmed ongoing negotiations with the Myanmar government for their release.
From October 2022 to October 2023, around 32 Sri Lankans were detained there. Via the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we discussed the issue with the Myanmar government and managed to secure their release. We are now being told that 56 Sri Lankans are being held there and they are being used to commit cybercrimes. We are in talks with the Myanmar government to secure their release. I have discussed the matters with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Home Affairs and the Ministry in charge of the police and the military. We have been engaging in talks for almost a year. The issue with rescuing them is that Myanmar is a military-run state. There are many terrorist groups operating in that region. Therefore, the Myanmar government cannot at once intervene to rescue them.
ම්‍යාවඩි කියන ප්‍රදේශය තමයි මේගොල්ලෝ ස්ථානගත වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා මියන්මාර් රජයටත් එකවර ශනිකව ඔවුන් මුදා ගැනීමේ හැකියාවක් නැහැ.
The Sri Lankan ambassador to Myanmar is appealing to Sri Lankans to refrain from using illegal means to seek employment overseas.
Do not travel to countries like Thailand using illegal channels. It is a serious risk because there are criminal gangs there to operate in those regions.
The Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment said that they are not aware of the incident. However, the Sri Lankan ambassador to Myanmar said that the group had entered the country using tourist visa.
In more headline-making news from here at home, Janaka Sri Chandragupta, the former secretary to the Ministry of Health, was arrested by the Criminal Investigation Department.
Janaka Sri Chandragupta, the former secretary to the Ministry of Health, presented himself to the CID earlier today to provide a statement in connection with an investigation into the distribution of suspected counterfeit human immunoglobulin medication. Several activists gathered opposite the CID premises and expressed their protest to the former health secretary upon his arrival.
දැන් ඒව දිව්වේ CID එක ඇතුළට ඇවිල්ලා ටක් ගාලා ගෙදරට ගියා අල්ල ගන්න බැරි වුණා කරන්න බැරි වුණා ගෙදරට දෙසරක් තුන්සරක් ගියා කියලා දැන් කියන්න බෑ ඔන්න ඇතුළට ආවා දැන් ඉතින් අපිත් දැක්කනේ ආවා කියලා ඒ දැන් අත්අඩංගුවට ගන්න.
Sri Lankan authorities recently procured the human immunoglobulin medication from a firm known as Isolase Biotech Pharma, which is used for the management of painful peripheral neuropathy. Shocking court revelations exposed Isolase Biotech Company for manufacturing and supplying fake medicine to the Ministry of Health. Nearly 3,000 vials of the counterfeit human immunoglobulin medication were administered before the scheme was uncovered. It was revealed that the Ministry of Health procured 3,985 vials and 2,985 of them were used. Evidence presented to courts showed the ministry procured the fake medication through an agreement reached on the 4th of January 2023 between the health secretary at the time and the owner of the company in question. Following these revelations, Dr. Kapila Vikramanayaka, the former director of the Medical Supplies Division, and several others were arrested and remanded over the incident.
Representatives of the citizens of the People's Struggle staged a protest outside the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna headquarters in Nelumawatha, expressing their discontent with the recent statement made by the party's General Secretary.
The SLPP headquarters in Battaramulla was already fortified with police security as it became the unexpected focus of a protest today as members of the citizens of the People's Struggle, including General Secretary Chanaka Bandara, gathered to express their outrage over a recent statement by the party General Secretary.
Sagar Karyavasam publicly said at the SLPP convention that 3% of the country's children are hypocrites. Those who looted the country's resources say that the children born in the country are hypocrites. What is the policy of the SLPP? Is it Basil Rajapaksa's stance, Mahindra Rajapaksa's stance, Sagar Karyavasam's stance, or the SLPP's stance? The rulers of this country loot all the funds and then call us and our children hypocrites. Is this even fair? They will be coming back to our houses during election season after calling our children hypocrites. People of the SLPP got scared when we came. There is no one here at the moment. Police officers have been deployed with water cannons and tear gas ready to be fired. The roads have also been blocked. That means that they know what sort of pressure the people are going through. You insulted the children who are yet to be born in our country. You robbed this country. We have something to offer to Sagara.
After placing Punak opposite the SLPP office, the group dispersed.
Milco chairman Renuka Pereira resigned from his post effective immediately.
This dramatic development comes after weeks of mounting employee protests and speculation about the future of the state-owned milk producer. Pereira's official resignation letter cites personal reasons for his departure.
Renuka Pereira, who simultaneously holds the post of Administrative Secretary of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna ruling party, found himself under mounting pressure from within the Milco, culminating his abrupt departure. The saga began on the 26th of October when a joint protest by all of Milco's trade unions erupted, fueled by grievances over unresolved salary arrears that eventually led him to being confined to his office by force. Following these events, Renuka Pereira on Monday directed his letter of resignation to the Secretary of Finance.
එතන ඉල්ලාස් වෙන බව ජනාධිපතිතුමාට පසුගිය 9 වෙනි මාසේ 16 වෙනිදා
On the 16th of September, I informed the President that I would be stepping down. However, due to certain political issues, it was delayed. At the same time, another group wanted to have one of their own as the chairman. Certain political agendas were in play. The government has reached a policy decision to privatize Milco, as it would have an impact on my time management. I believe that suspending more time would be a waste. Therefore, I directed my letter of resignation to the Finance Secretary.
Renuka Pereira announced announced his resignation to pursue full-time political activities within the Podujana Peramuna party.
When financial management practices were changed, some were affected. It cannot be changed. Those individuals may be having issues. As a party, we have to face an election in the next 8 months. As I have to take up the responsibility, I have decided to commit myself full-time for the party.
Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture and Plantation Industries, Janaka Dharmakirti, was appointed as the new chairman of the Milco company effective today. The appointment was made by the minister in charge of the subject, Mahindra Amar.
Dr. S. Jaishankar, the Indian Minister of External Affairs, stressed that during the darkest times of Sri Lanka, it was India that stepped forward to help.
We are actually able to surprise even ourselves by the extent of our achievements. And the natural beneficiaries of this are actually the countries around us. You know, in the last few years, if we have struggled with COVID, many of our neighbors were much smaller. You know, they didn't have the capacities to produce which we did. They would have been left out when it came to vaccine access if we had not stepped forward. You had a country like Sri Lanka, which actually went into a very deep economic crisis. And while the rest of the world, including other institutions who are supposed to respond to it, were debating what to do, it was actually India which stepped forward. It was our extended hand which actually at the darkest moment for Sri Lanka made a critical difference. So, and again, it's not simply a crisis response. Those of you who travel in our neighborhood will actually see the other changes, the structural changes, the deep changes which are taking place. The fact that you can travel more easily, that there are railway lines to our neighboring countries, there are more roads to our neighboring countries, there's power grid connectivity, that there is waterway connectivity, that business is using the ports and the facilities of our neighbors. And they too are using ours. So India's prosperity today is serving as a lifting tide for the entire region. And we have shown at moments of difficulty, whether it was vaccine supply, whether it was food supply, whether it was financial assistance, whether it was essential goods, that India is there for the neighborhood. It sends a great message to the neighborhood, but I can assure you, it is a message that resonates beyond.
Frontline Socialist Party alleged that India is taking undue advantage of Sri Lanka's economic crisis by stealing its national assets. They made this allegation at a media briefing in Colombo today.
India has used the economic crisis, or in other words, the crisis created by the ruling elite, to claim ownership of a large portion of our national assets simply by using the $3.9 billion they loaned out to us. They're on a mission to claim the north and the east. There are plans to evict around 18,000 families by now. Many ancient fishing villages, including Samudragama and Vijitapura, will be wiped out with over 3,000 families. This is merely a start. A power transmission grid is being developed between India and Sri Lanka. The second matter is the renewable energy projects planned to be established targeting the north. We witnessed the CEB entering into agreements with Adani in the recent past. The Electricity Act is being amended to fulfill the rest of these requirements. A plan is underway to lay an oil pipeline from India to Sri Lanka. On the surface, it may seem like an attempt to supply oil at a lower cost. But that is not the case. Sri Lanka's market is smaller than even some of India's major cities. There is no need to invest in such a massive project. What is being attempted is to claim the ability to supply oil to vessels of other nations. There is a natural gas and crude oil deposit around the Mannar Basin. Based on the observations conducted so far, 2 billion barrels of crude oil can be extracted from this. There is also 9 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. These two have been projected to be valued at $167 billion. This deposit is the focus of the agreement. India attempted to claim this for a long time. This is the direct route for it. Oil will be extracted from the area, refined and sold using our land, our ports and so on. Then a proposal will be made to approve the Indian rupee as an accepted currency in Sri Lanka. A proposal will also be made to name economic zones from Trincomalee to Colombo. This was the aim of the MCC project as well. The reason for this is the need to connect the Colombo port with the Trincomalee port. Sri Lanka will be connected to India from Mannar on one side. Another project from Mannar to Trincomalee will be launched, and finally an economic corridor from Trincomalee to Colombo will be established. It was mentioned on the agreement inked in July that both the NLDB and Milco will be leased to Indian corporations. By now, the Amul Corporation has come forward for it. They are preparing to lease out 32,000 acres and 32 farms under this agreement. Minister Nimal Siripala announced that Sri Lankan Airlines will be sold. One entity tipped to purchase it is Adani. We also have reports that Indian companies have engaged in extraction activities of the ilmenite quarry in Kuchaveli. That too is being plundered.
විද කොටස් අත්පත් කර ගැනීම සඳහා ඉන්දියානු සමාගම් ඇවිල්ලා ඔවුන් මේ ප්‍රදේශයේ මැනීම් කටයුතු වල නිරත වෙනවා කියලා. ඒතර ඉල්මනට් නිදිය කොල්ල කන්න සූදානම් වෙනවා.
Trade unions allege that plans are afoot to sell the National Institute of Cooperative Development in Kandy under the guise of restructuring.
The minister in charge of cooperatives has stopped the implementation of this act through the cabinet paper. He has done this to sell the lands in Polgalla to various businessmen. On the other hand, the cabinet is planning to loot cooperatives that have more than 550 billion and an amount close to 1,000 billion in funds. This institute has not only conducted diplomas and courses, but has also been training officers since 1945. This institute is built on 22 acres of land and has 7 lecture halls. Not only that, this institute has hostel facilities, a printing press, a computer lab and 4 laboratories. Next, there is the TB Langaratna Memorial Library. This library has 23,000 books that are not in the department archive. The biggest theatre in the central province, which has 1,120 seats, is also located here. We are going to lose all this, including the education the institute provides because of this decision. They are planning to hand over the education operations to the Kolpiti Cooperatives Board. They have no environment to operate this and no lecturers as well. Therefore, all these programs will have to be cancelled. We urge the President, Prime Minister and the Cabinet to reverse this decision.
Telecom trade unions stated that they will commence a continuous strike against the privatization of Sri Lanka Telecom and its current administration.
51% of the public's fund belong to the country's treasury. There are 5 directors appointed for the 51% of Sri Lanka Telecom. They were not appointed according to their educational qualifications. It was their political connections that were taken into consideration. They are engaging in a huge racket with some directors who came from Malaysia. They looted a massive amount of money and now they are trying to loot the last bit. They plan on earning a commission. We request the President to immediately remove these 5 directors from their posts. Also, the chairman you appointed is not at all suitable to hold the post. All the telecom employees around the country and employees of all other state-owned enterprises the government is planning on selling off will be joining us in a strike that we will be commencing tomorrow. Be prepared to face our action.
The functional agreement for the operation of the China-Sri Lanka Joint Research and Demonstration Center for Water Technology was signed between Chinese Academy of Sciences, China, Ministry of Water and Supply and Estate Infrastructure Development and the University of Peradeniya.
The China-Sri Lanka Joint Research and Demonstration Center for Water Technology is a grant from the Chinese government. It includes state-of-the-art laboratory facilities and will link the Chinese Academy of Sciences and the University of Peradeniya in areas of research and corporations.
The tripartite agreement we witness here today is to ensure the long-term and efficient operation of the GRDC, which is pioneered the project of China-Sri Lanka Scientific and Technological Cooperation, a model of cooperation among governments, industries, academics, and research levels of our two countries.
One of the aims or one of the goals of 2042 Centenary Development Plan is to expand our international links. There is no better organization in the world than Chinese Academy of Sciences for us to do that.
The China-Sri Lanka Joint Research and Demonstration Center for Water Technology was initiated as a measure to engage in research on the chronic kidney disease that became a perennial issue in the country. However, at present, the China-Sri Lanka Joint Research and Demonstration Center for Water Technology is engaged in a plethora of research related to water.
Sri Lanka has denied entry to a Chinese research vessel seeking to conduct explorations within its territorial waters, the Sea of Sri Lanka. The decision was confirmed by a senior government official who wished to remain anonymous.
Another Chinese state-of-the-art research vessel, Xiangyang Hong 3, is expected to conduct research from January to May next year in the Indian Ocean region, including the Sea of Sri Lanka and the Maldives. According to media reports, China has formally requested permission for the research vessel to conduct operations from Sri Lanka and the Maldives. However, according to a recent report by the Hindustan Times, India has registered its strong objection to the vessel's planned activities, urging both island nations to deny entry. It is also reported that the vessel Xiangyang Hong 3 is currently off the coast of Xiamen in South China Sea and will travel via Malacca to these countries after securing permission. Indian media outlets have openly accused China of using the research mission as a pretext for gathering intelligence under the guise of scientific exploration. The situation is further complicated by the recent political change in the Maldives, where the newly elected president, Mohammad Muizzu, has reportedly requested the departure of Indian military personnel stationed in the country.
Sri Lanka has been plunged into an economic crisis, not by its people, but by those who are responsible for steering our nation's future and managing its precious resources. This crisis isn't something that happened overnight, but was the result of systemic corruption and incompetence. As a nation, the people have now been asked to shoulder the burden of dragging Sri Lanka out of this crisis. While this happens, it is vitally important that the citizens of Sri Lanka keep their eyes and ears open to how our national resources and assets are being managed. A crisis is always an opportunity that can be used by the unscrupulous to squander whatever remains of a national wealth, its strategic resources, its strategic locations and resources. It is understood that certain difficult measures must indeed be taken. It is also vital that a government follows the strictest possible due process, especially when it comes to Sri Lanka's geopolitical interests and our national resources and assets. A completely transparent process, especially when it comes to the privatization of national assets, is not an option, but an obligation and a duty on the part of any government. A crisis is no excuse to take shortcuts in this process. While some politicians may not be pleased with our reportage on these matters, it must be kept in mind that at Newsfirst, our allegiance is to the people of Sri Lanka, and our only obligation and responsibility is to always report in the interest of our nation's sovereignty and our people's future.
News First with the people.
Gypsies live in concert with Sirasa TV, where music meets the spirit of the season. Christmas with Gypsies. Back after 25 years to Vihara Mahadevi Open Air. Sirasa Flashtown 23 Gypsies live in concert. Featuring BNS, Hana and Nadima. Get your tickets now. Media sponsors Sirasa TV and TV1.
Welcome back to the news. Now, last night we brought to your attention a story on how a large stock of seed potatoes donated by the World Bank to be distributed among farmers at a discounted price decaying while being stored at a warehouse in Jaffna. Over 21 metric tons of seed potatoes in this stock have rotted and cannot be cultivated.
What are these seed potatoes? Why were they brought to Jaffna? This stock of seed potatoes imported from Australia had been stored at a warehouse in Kuppilan, Jaffna to be distributed among farmers. It had been transported to Jaffna in September this year to be sold to farmers at a discounted price through a grant by the World Bank. However, a portion of this stock had gone bad even before the date the farmers were notified to purchase them. Why did this stock go bad? One noticeable factor is the appearance of the seed potatoes. It has been revealed by now that a certain type of bacteria has spread across this stock of seed potatoes. Assistant Director of the Agriculture Research Centre in Tirunelveli, L. Rajesh Khanna, says the bacteria has been identified as Bactobacterium keratiforum.
மாவட்ட அரசாங்க அதிபருடன் கலந்து கொண்ட விடயத்துக்கு அமைவாகவும் எங்களுடைய ஆராய்ச்சி முடிவுகளின்படியும் தற்போது
The main factor here is the bacteria had already begun spreading when this stock was brought to the warehouse. There is no way of separating the seeds that have been affected by the bacteria and the ones that are not. We informed the district secretary to stop distributing this among farmers because this stock has been exposed to Bactobacterium keratiforum. It had spread across over 40% of the entire stock by the 12th of December.
விவசாயிகளுக்கு கொடுப்பதை நாங்கள் நிறுத்தியானது மரத்தால 40% உருளைக்கிழங்குகளை பாதித்திருக்கின்றது.
What will be done to the stock of seed potatoes affected by this bacteria? A special discussion was held at the Jaffna District Secretary's office today, headed by the District Secretary himself, to make a decision on this matter. Department heads connected to this matter were also present at the meeting.
During this meeting, we decided to notify the Governor and the Ministry of Agriculture on this. As the District Secretary, I have not even been notified of it. I have not even received an official statement. This decision was made after we inspected the warehouse and the research centre gave us its verdict. The bacteria was in the stock when it was being imported from Australia. We decided to destroy this stock.
Sri Lanka's irrigation department reports that nearly 50 major reservoirs across the country are overflowing due to recent heavy rainfall. Sudashini Vidanapathina, director of the department's water management unit, confirmed that the overall water capacity of the main reservoirs has reached 80%.
The Met Department continues to issue weather warnings for several regions. Residents in the northern, eastern, north central and Uva provinces can expect continued rainfall in the coming days with the possibility of localized heavy showers and isolated thunderstorms.
The Milco district has borne the brunt of the downpours, facing severe flooding and displacement of families. Newsfirst correspondents on the ground confirm that in Siratikulam, 67 families remain trapped due to the overflowing of the Parangi Aru river. Vattarapalai and Senmalai areas are also grappling with flood waters, adding to the distress in the district. The people from the Odu Sudan area who were displaced by the extreme weather conditions are now entering their third day in the temporary welfare centres. The opening of the sluice gates in the Mutten Kattu lake forced these residents to vacate their homes, seeking temporary shelter. Deranamadu and Kanagambige Kulam water bodies in the Kilinochu district are overflowing, and as a result many low-lying areas are flooded. Multiple roadways in the district remain inundated. The rising water levels in the Pali and Arabi-Uhe rivers and the Kunjikulam reservoir have impacted over 2,000 residents in the Mannar district, adding to the flood-related challenges across Sri Lanka. The Batiklo district faces another challenge as the overflowing of the Sittan Sandanamadu-Uhe river has cut off the village of Idalakulam.
All Ceylon Probation Officers Association points out that children in rehabilitation in some provinces receive only 50 rupees for their food and beverages.
මේ රටේ පරිවාසා ළමාරසක සේවා දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව විසින් පවත්වාගෙන යන අධීක්ෂණය කරනු ලබන
we have observed that the efforts taken by the National Child Protection Authority to develop the mental state of children in rehabilitation are ineffective. The children that come into rehabilitation are children that have lost their parents' guidance and have been subject to various mental strains. The need to uplift the mental state of these children is something we have constantly brought to the attention of officials. We ask them to recruit special counsellors and conduct a special program to address these children's mental health issues. We are addressing the people of the country and officials of the authority today through the media because we don't see our requests bearing any fruit. Another serious matter is that around 9,000 children in rehabilitation are only given 100 or 50 rupees through their provincial councils. You can't even buy some beetle with such a small amount of money. So, as the All Ceylon Probation Officers Association, we have a serious question on how the government thinks that this amount will suffice for children's meals.
දරුවෙකුගේ එක දිනක ආහාරයට රුපියල් 50ක් ගැලපෙනවාද ඒ සඳහා සුදුසුද යන්න පිළිබඳව පරිවාසනදාරි සංගමයක් විදිහට අපිට තියෙන බලවත් කනගාටුදායක තත්ත්වයක්.
Former parliamentarian of the Samagi Janabalawege S Muj Rahman expressed his opinion at a media briefing today.
මේ ආණ්ඩුවට තිබෙන එක චෝදනාවක් තමයි IMF එක කියන්නේත් හරිම අකාරශ.
The IMF says that the incumbent government is inefficient. That is one of the basic points that is mentioned in their report, and they are right about that. This government is inefficient. There is no way to purchase eggs. Eggs had to be priced at 65 rupees for the Minister of Trade to import eggs from India. That is how inefficient the government has become. We saw in Jaffna how the World Bank had given a 20,000 metric ton stock of seed potatoes. None of it was suitable for cultivation. This stock was given by the World Bank. It was kept at a warehouse instead of being distributed among farmers. The entire stock of 20,000 metric tons of potato, that entire stock has gone bad. Similarly, hundreds of thousands of metric tons of rice were found from around the country. None of that had been distributed among the people. From that alone, we can see that the country's administration has fallen apart. It is against this backdrop that President Wickremesinghe is boasting about the country's situation. The All Ceylon School Development Officers Collective engaged in a protest opposite the Fort Railway Station today.
The demonstration focused on urging the administration to expedite the absorption of school development officers into teaching corps and eliminate procrastination in decision making. Security measures around the Fort Railway Station was tightened as well.
Although we have been serving as teachers for 3 years, we have not been included in the teaching service. All we ask is that we be employed as teachers.
A protest was held in Malimbada, Mathura today.
Farmers in Malimbada took to the streets voicing their discontent over 10 days of accumulated water flooding roads and hindering daily activities. Frustrated by stagnant water blocking their access to fields and markets, farmers along with other affected residents gathered near the Malimbada Talagahagoda pumping station. Their protest aimed to draw attention to the issue and demand swift action from authorities. As the demonstration moved to Malimbada town, tensions rose, with the presence of police adding to a charged atmosphere. Following discussions with irrigation officials, assurances were given regarding proper operation of the pumping station to address the flooding problem. After receiving these promises, the crowd dispersed, offering a temporary truce, but maintaining an air of cautious optimism.
Residents of Kahatagastigiliya and Tirappane in Sri Lanka's Anuradhapura district held protests expressing frustration over the lack of effective solutions to the ongoing issue of wild elephant encroachments.
Residents of Tirappane village in Sri Lanka staged a protest against a tusker elephant named Agbo, known for encroaching on farmland and causing property damage. Frustrated by the lack of effective solutions from authorities, the protest turned tense when demonstrators attempted to enter the divisional secretariat office. Sri Lanka police intervened, facilitating a meeting between the divisional secretary and the protesters. During the discussions, protesters reiterated their concerns and proposed a solution, fencing the area frequented by Agbo. The protesters pointed out that the area in which the tusker is can be enclosed by a fence. Upon receiving word that an effective solution will be implemented tomorrow, the protesters dispersed. The protesters said
that if their demands are not met, they will hold a hunger strike. Residents of Kahatagasdigilia took to the streets, marching towards the Divisional Secretariat office to demand a concrete solution to the ongoing human-elephant conflict. After protesting for about an hour, the Divisional Secretary stated that a permanent solution would be implemented within the next week, following consultations with officials from the Wildlife Department. However, the protesters made it clear they wouldn't tolerate further delays. They warned that if no viable solution is implemented within the set deadline, they would escalate their public protests.
Two separate media briefings revealed of attempts being made to award duty-free permits for vehicle imports.
There is an initiative taken to import 150 duty-free vehicles. Who are they going to give the duty-free vehicles to? And for what? The citizens of this country are finding it difficult to provide for their basic needs. They have increased VAT to 18%, making it even more difficult for citizens to survive. In the end, it is the citizens of this country who will have to bear the tax costs for these duty-free vehicles. Who are they going to give it to? They will give it to the politicians and various intellectuals. Why are they giving it? Is it a ploy to keep people from talking? Are they giving it as gifts? We see this situation as a serious crisis. They do not hold elections. They are afraid of elections.
Now these were the views expressed by the Women for Freedom.
අපි දන්නවා දැන් පෞගේ කාලේ පුරාම රටේ ජනතාවට හෙන ගහලා ගියාදෙන් කියලා හිතපු ආණ්ඩුව තමන්ගේ
We know that this government that ignored the people's woes in the past acted in a way to maximize their own benefits. This can also be seen as such an effort. The medical insurance of the parliamentarians was increased by 1 million rupees. They also did the needful to accommodate their troubles. The vehicle story is also the same story. They are trying to please their friends and accommodate their demands. We are telling the people of this country there is no atmosphere for people to purchase new vehicles in this situation. People are selling their cars because they cannot afford to travel in them. The government is colluding with their friends and aiming to burden the people by targeting essential commodities.
ආහන මිනිසුන්ට ගන්න පුළුවන් තත්ත්වයක් නැහැ. ඒ නිසා මේ අත්‍යවශ්‍ය නොවන දේවල් වලට තමයි දැන් මේ ආණ්ඩුව මේ තමන්ගේ ඒ කියන්නේ තමන් ළඟම ඉන්න සහචරයොත් එක්ක වැඩ කරමින් ඉන්නේ.
Now, in light of these allegations, Newsfirst made attempts to contact the Finance Secretary and the two State Finance Ministers for a comment in this regard. And according to State Minister of Finance Ranjit Siambala-Pitya, there is no such plan in place. Moving on to more news from the local political arena. The Freedom People's Congress made known details of a proposed alliance during a press briefing held today.
The parties that should react the most to our attempt to send the incumbent government home are the Samagi Jana Balawegaya and the National People's Power. Accept it. When it comes to numbers, the two most powerful alliances are the Samagi Jana Balawegaya and the National People's Power. Put aside the slogans which say that Sajit is the next president with Anura as Prime Minister, or Anura is the next president with Sajit as the Prime Minister. The people just want to make sure that the incumbent government is ousted. Some overestimate their powers and underestimate others. Due to this, opposition parties refused to unite. Perhaps there were issues with the policies of those parties. There may have been other issues as well. As the Freedom People's Congress, we always attempted to get our policies to be implemented and do something for the citizens while opposing the government.
අවශ්‍ය කරන ඒ විපක්ෂයේ මහා බලවේග ගොඩනගා.
Yes, from the parties we held discussions with. The most number of discussions were held with the Samagi Jana Balawegaya. There were some meetings which only our party leader Talasalha Peruma or Professor G.L. Piris took part in. After the meetings, we joined various committees that were formed and had more discussions. Everyone had accepted that when forming an alliance in the opposition, the SJB plays a major role in it. There is no truth to that statement. Professor G.L. Piris never wanted to become Prime Minister.
Sri Lanka police seized drugs exceeding 300 million rupees in a coordinated effort aimed at curbing narcotics in the island. The operation, dubbed Justice, saw extensive investigations and raids across the island nation.
Police spokesperson SSP Nihal Thalduwa told Newsfirst that these operations will continue until Saturday, the 23rd.
In a swift and coordinated operation dubbed Yuktya, Sri Lankan authorities apprehended over 2,100 individuals across the island nation within the past 24 hours, dealing a significant blow to drug trafficking and underworld activities. The extensive operation netted 2,020 men and 101 women. Notably, detention orders were secured for 12 suspects, while 133 individuals were referred for rehabilitation. Marijuana emerged as the dominant drug seized during the operation, with authorities confiscating a staggering 178 kilograms. The Western Province emerged as the epicenter of the arrests, with a significant portion of the apprehended individuals hailing from the region. Officials confirmed the arrest of 116 suspects out of the 3,340 identified in the databases operated by the Police Special Branch and the Police Narcotics Bureau. Furthermore, the operation, launched just yesterday, forms part of a broader initiative dubbed Justice, aimed at comprehensively suppressing drug trafficking and underworld operations. The ongoing crackdown benefits from the combined efforts of the Sri Lanka Police, including its Narcotics Bureau and Special Bureau, alongside the Armed Forces and the Police Special Task Force. A robust deployment of personnel underscores the seriousness of the operation, with 200 Army personnel, 200 police officers and 50 members of the elite Special Task Force actively engaged in the nationwide sweep.
As the University of Peradeniya gears up for its centenary in 2042, the university administration has laid out ambitious goals aimed at solidifying its position as a leading academic institution in the region and beyond.
Embracing a holistic approach to its future, the University of Peradeniya has unveiled its strategic road for the next 2 decades, leading up to its centenary in 2042. The plan prioritizes a 3-pronged focus: education, research and social service, aimed at solidifying the university's position as a beacon of academic excellence and societal impact.
Every single sector in the university is of paramount importance to us. We operate under 3 main areas: education, research and social service. Education is also a service to the society. However, we need to serve society in a greater manner. With programs like Gammadda, we are able to delve deep into social issues. Upon considering all these areas, we submitted a document to the government on our targets for 2042. The ultimate objective of these programs are to ensure that the university is rich in its standards, student capacity and resources.
A Japanese language promotion program targeting the beginner-level Japanese learners and the general public was held in Colombo today.
The program was organized by the Embassy of Japan in Sri Lanka. The Japanese language promotion program targets the beginner-level Japanese learners and general public. Chief Representative at JICA in Sri Lanka, Tetsuya Yamada, made the following remarks.
JICA does a lot of cooperation, a lot of types of different types of cooperation, ranging from grassroots assistance, volunteer, and grant assistance, technical assistance, and loans as well. Volunteer program is one of the most useful and the most efficient and effective and strong tools that we have to offer to Sri Lanka. We call volunteers as grassroots ambassadors.
The family Christmas concert presented by Symphony Orchestra of Sri Lanka took place over the weekend.
The hallowed halls of Bishop's College Auditorium resonated with the spirit of Christmas this weekend as the Symphony Orchestra of Sri Lanka presented its annual Family Christmas concert. Under the masterful batons of conductors Dusyanti Pereira and Nishantha Varnakulasuriya, a vibrant tapestry of music unfurled, captivating a music-loving audience of all ages. Beloved Christmas classics, infused with Sri Lankan charm, transported the audience on a heartwarming journey. The Old Joe's Choir, steeped in tradition, added a touch of nostalgia with their carols. The family Christmas concert, a cherished tradition of the Symphony Orchestra of Sri Lanka, once again proved its magic. An evening of pure joy, a celebration of music, family, and the timeless promise of Christmas.
Pro-democracy media tycoon Jimmy Lai has gone on trial in Hong Kong on charges of breaching national security and colluding with foreign forces.
76-year-old Jimmy Lai went on trial in Hong Kong on charges of breaching national security and colluding with foreign forces. Lai denies all the charges. Jailed since December 2020, he faces life in prison if he is found guilty. The self-made millionaire was arrested under a security law which China is accused of using to crush dissent. His case has caused an international outcry and is widely seen as a test of Hong Kong's judicial independence. He is one of more than 250 activists, lawmakers and protesters detained under the national security law and sedition charges. Beijing, which introduced the NSL in 2020 in response to massive pro-democracy protests, insists the law is necessary to quell unrest. It considers Lai a traitor who sought to undermine China's security. But critics say Lai's case is yet another example of Beijing's tightening grip on the former British territory.
On to sports news, the newly appointed Selection Committee of Sri Lanka Cricket met the Minister of Sports today.
The chairman of the new selection committee, Upul Tharanga, and its other members met Minister Harin Fernando today. The Ministry of Sports said that the discussions at the meeting focused on setting Sri Lanka cricket on a victorious path through the implementation of new plans. Sanat Jayasuriya, who was appointed a consultant to Sri Lanka cricket, was also present at the meeting. The new selection committee led by Upul Tharanga includes Tharanga Parnavithana, Indika Deseram, Ajanta Mendes and Dilruwan Pereira. The committee has been appointed for a period of 2 years.
And with that, it's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight.
Thank you and good night.